Hey guys, Train here again. This is video 5 of my tutorials for random loot generation. So this is the pickup item, and I hope you guys watched video 4, and I really hope that you were able to follow along. Again, if you have any questions or wondering anything about it, you just can't figure something out, just feel free to write me in like on that video's comments, and please put the time time marker on the like on your comment so that I know where it is in the video that you're having trouble, and I will try to do my best to help you through that. So for this video, I'm going to show you how to set up the pickup item, and you should have watched the preparation video, the first one. That will help you. That would have set you up with this item at least. You would have had a pickup, and it's literally just nothing. Like, this is just a static mesh, just a static cube. There's nothing else on it, right? And so the treasure chest. Let's open the treasure chest because I want to make sure that you guys had this. And I know if you already followed along with the treasure chest, you should have it to be able to where it spawns items, at least. So spawn item. We go back to our spawn item function. And remember, this was from our oh god, this was from our video. Sorry, this was from tutorial number 2. Spacing out there for a second. My god. So tutorial 2, I went over how to spawn an item, and we were spawning the class of all this stuff, right? We had this pickup item, and we were spawning the common class based on that item database that we had set up with all of our items. And you had a master item, and you had common master, and you have all these little base different ones. And the item gets pulled from there, and it spawns the actor, and the actor does the rest for the rest of the loot generating. Like the way that it rolls, the actor itself rolls all its own stats upon spawn. So all the treasure chest does is spawns the item, and as soon as the item is spawned, the item does takes control and does all of what it needs to do to tell the game what it is. Like, yes, I'm a legendary sword. That's what I am. You know, it does everything. It has all that functionality inside here. And so we're gonna go back to our pickup item, our master item blueprint master. If you're not in the master, you better get there right now, because that's not, you don't want to mess up any of your other ones. But again, you shouldn't even have any others actually, because this is the one that you have to make all of your children from. So at the very first video, I told you guys, oh, go ahead and make other shit, and I was wrong. I forgot. That was not good, because you need to have the functionality in there. So if you already did that, delete all those, and you're going to make this master right now, and you're going to make children from it. So we have the pickup, we have this cube, it's got nothing in it basically, and we're gonna make a couple variables. We're gonna want one variable is gonna be a version of that item structure, of our item structure. We want a version of our item structure. So you go in here and you say item struct. That just happens to be what I called it. I'm sorry, that's not it. I went here. You go here, you go item struct. Okay. If you named your item structure something else, you need to type that in there and find that. But you're going to want that variable. And I'm going to delete this. So you need that. That's going to bring up all of the item details, right? That allows you to go into this item when it's out in the world, and in your content browser, and you can say, I want this specific blueprint to be a sword, and I want it to have the name of such and such, and I want it to be a legendary, and I want it to have I want this lore to be something, right? So that's where you go. This is where you go in and fill all those details out on each individual one, not on the master. The master is going to pretty much stay empty. But as you make children, you make a common child, and that common child can have the common child master. Could have the rarity, say common, in the common child master, because every child that you make from that one is going to obviously be common. So you're basically filling in that, and then all those little children of the common will inherit that they are common, right? They're not going to be something else because they came from the common child. So let's delete that. So, but in the main like master, this one never gets spawned. By the way, the master never gets spawned. The master is simply just to have to make children from, and it's like a template. It's always going to be empty. It'll never have anything in here. You always want to. It's going to be like all of its values are getting overridden by all of the children that you make, and when you make all your children, you'll go in there and when you finally have your common child that you want to name, you'll put the name in there and you'll say it's Poops Vanquisher, and so that's what that's where you fill those out. And then when it grabs that item and spawns it, Poops Vanquisher is going to be there because it's the actual one that's named, because it's the real one that's spawned, not this master. Okay. So the next variable we're going to need is going to be a float array, and that float array is, I call it final stat value array. It's going to be where all our stat values are going to be like stored before they get passed out and into the menu. There's not going to be anything in it. It has 0 array slots because we're going to add them on the fly. So that's just make a float and then change the type. Change the type to array right there. Okay. One temp integer, and that integer is going to start at 0. Doesn't matter because it's not going to make any difference right now. And then we need an item stat array, and that needs to be a text or string, whichever kind you're using. You want to be, if you're using string, just make it a string. Make sure it's an array. And these are going to be the things like what are the stuff that you want the text to display. Like, do you, when you make your list of different things that the gear can roll with, that list of things needs to be in this array right here. You need to have however many you fucking have. If you have 20 of them, there needs to be 20 of them in here. You need to have can poop faster, right? 5% pooping faster. And I don't know why I keep using the word poop. It's just comes to my brain really fast. So you would say, whatever it is that you want. Let's see. You could say kills or increased demon damage, right? So all of these are like it's like the pool of stats that can be drawn from at random when the item is created to decide upon what it gets. Like, these are the items that are available, and these are the items that are going to be picked from every time it makes an item. So the more the merrier, right? If you have 50 different stats in there, it's going to have this really wide variety of things that it can pick from at random, and it'll pull basically 5 of those every time. So, or the way that I have mine set up, it's pulling 5 every time, right? It's filling in with, filling all 5 stats. So I'm going to go ahead and delete these because I don't have more than this, and I don't need those right now. I want it to be drawing from empty slots. I don't want to put poop in there. So I've got my 5 that I'm testing with. Movement speed, attack speed, critical strike damage, critical strike chance, and fire damage. And it's important to note that the capitalization is important here because the text is going to display however you put it right here. If you don't use if you use lowercase, it's going to display lowercase. If you use uppercase, it's going to display uppercase. So if you want it to be a specific thing, just remember to write it inside this array because this information is getting passed from the item to the actor array, the actor tooltip, and then again passed to the item tooltip. It's just passing along in this little like river. Now, next one is another text array, string array, whatever you're using. And this one is empty. This is the final stat text array, right? So this was the stat text array that holds all of the choices to pull from. This array is the one where those 5 that get selected are going to be held and passed along. Okay? So that's just another array. None of these need to be public and exposed on spawn except for the item structure. And I don't even think that's really important. I don't think that that's even... Yeah, it is exposed on spawn. Let me go take a look. I don't think it's actually important that I do that. I have it exposed on spawn right here, but I don't need it. So technically, I don't even need that to be exposed on spawn because I'm not putting anything in there. So I can go ahead and just get rid of it. But when you spawn this actor, if you didn't have those actors, that's the other thing I was going to go over. These arrays, they need to have the actual actors in them. Once you make these, once we make this master and you create all your children, you need to be sure that you go in there and you start adding every single item that you have. They all need to be in there except for like the ones that are like the masters. If it's a master item, you don't need to put it in there, obviously. So it's just the individual versions of like items. Those ones, I have master versions in there because I was just testing with stuff, but like eventually you don't want that. You just want the name of the items and the type of the item, whatever it is, and the name. That's like the royal sunflare. That's the sunflare item that I have. It's not a master of any kind. It just came from weapons master. So those are all of them will be in there. Like all these need to be filled with all these items that we make right here. And when we're done with this master, you'll need to make all the children, duplicate them in your content browser, make children, and put them all in folders. And then you just need to come in here and you need to start filling these arrays with them so that they'll actually have stuff to choose from, right? Different items to pick from. When it spawns item, when it goes to spawn an item, it'll actually have stuff to pick from. Okay? If you have trouble with this, please write me on the comments and I'll definitely help you out. This is not really too complex. You should have these already from video 2. I had you guys just leave them empty. You just need to remember to go in here and fill them with all the items you make. If you're not making different rarities, there's going to only be one. You're going to put all of your items in that one. You might have 200 items. They're all going to go in here. Just not the masters. Okay. So we can go back now, and I'm going to close that treasure chest. And I'm going to get rid of the... as you make your children, I want you guys to also be aware, as you start making children of this blueprint, and you change functionality in this blueprint, it's going to take a long time to compile, because it has to go through and compile and change all the children, alright? So, the more children you have, the longer it's going to take to compile. It'll start adding up. Like, it'll be probably, like, if you had 200 children, it'll probably be minutes to compile. I don't really know. I haven't gone that far. But it's because it has to change all those children's information every time you do this, because they're all inheriting. So I'm going to go ahead and unpublic that and unexpose it on spawn, because it doesn't need to be that at all. And you'll see, like, mine even takes a little bit of time to compile. At least like 4 seconds or something. So let me make sure that mine still works now that I did that and it didn't change anything. It should still work. Yeah, everything's working. Got my increased speeds. I don't know why I'm getting 0% on those. I need to figure out, it might be that I'm not rolling with that stat, I think. When I don't roll with a stat, when it doesn't roll a stat on like this one here, I think it just rolls with 0% because I haven't fixed that. Because I'm telling it to draw something, but nothing is there, so it's trying to take a value of 0, append it to text, and tell it that it's a percent, and so I get 0% of nothing. And I don't get I don't get like an actual string of text information, like I don't get anything with it because there was nothing, it didn't pull anything. Because I didn't get lucky and I didn't get those stats on that item. Those two were just like non-existent. I only got 3 stats on that item. Okay, So we are now at the temp float. We're going to make a temp float variable, and that's just a regular float. We're going to leave that at 0. Okay, so the pickup functionality, we'll go to the event graph first, probably, because there's everything starts there, basically. And I'm going to open this up now, and I'm going to go here. We're going to find our event begin play, and so on your event begin play of your pickup item, on the master pickup item, again, item blueprint master. Sorry I repeat myself so much, but it's very important. If you guys screw that up, then it's like it won't even work right. You grab your player controller, get player controller, okay? Get that, and you're gonna go enable mouse click events, I think it is. Enable mouse click, no, mouse over events, right? Enable mouse over events. Enable mouse over events. And you're going to want set enable mouse over events, not get. So set enable mouse over events and set that to true. Click that box and then bring your thing over there. Connect those two. Now you have what I have right here. Okay, so I'm just going to move that back. And then we're going to make a function now that is going to generate all of our random stats for us. So we're going to have basically create plus function. This one's you can do this from here because it's not going to be binded to anything. This is a real function. Plus add the function, name it, generate random stats, and then open it up, and you're going to have this right here. It's just going to be this by little lonely self right there. So pull off of that and open a for loop, a regular for loop, and sometimes in order to get that to work, you actually have to, so for loop, you actually have to type loop sometimes. It doesn't like to find it because a lot of times it'll find for each loop. And just go down and get the for loop. We don't need the one with the break right now. We just want a regular for loop, okay? And then set that there, connect the two lines if they didn't get connected. And you're going to set your first index at 0, okay? So 0 is where it starts, and then the last index is going to be where it ends. And if you would like to know what this does, I will put some comment around it right here. So I haven't commented this section because I did it, commented a little bit, but I haven't commented this because I just didn't have time yet. So let's comment this. What this does is tells the game how many, or tells the item how many stats it's going to have. So basically, create random amount of stats. Right? So if you, here's the color. I like to make mine black. The only time I use different colors is when it's important. So create random amount of stats. So it's going to start at 0, and we want it to have 5 stats total, right? So the maximum amount of stats it can get to is 4, because 0 counts as 1. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 5 stats, right? So max is going to be 4. Minimum is going to be 2, which is actually 3. So every item can roll between 3 stats and 5 stats on mine right now. You can change that to whatever you want. If you want to have more stats, you can make this is your max amount of stats. And if you want to make these variables, then that's fine. You can promote them to a variable if you want to, and call it you can call it max stat amount, and you can promote this to minimum stat amount, you know. So if you want to just go in and change those variables, you can make them public, and you'd be able to change those on the fly and say, well, I want my items, I want to be able to change the amount of stats they can have on the fly by clicking on the viewport, clicking on the item in the world, and then let me make that, actually, shit, I should have made that public first. I gotta wait for this to compile. So let's make this public and I'll show you. Auto saving here, that's good. So we'll compile this one more time. We have max stats, right? Max stat amount. If I want to change that on the fly while the item's out in the world, I make it public, and then I can go to, oh sorry, not while the item's out in the world, but I just meant like if you go to the children of it inside here into your item database, you can actually make that public and it'll show up on the top of the viewport, so right here in the default. So max stat amount can be 4, right? So, or class defaults, max stat amount is 4. And so, it's more likely, you know, it's just a nice way to see things. That way, if you want, like, if you want to, turn off class D. Okay. Well, screw it. But anyway, it's just another way to do it. So you can do that if you want to. I don't do it because I know how many I want right now, and I'm not changing it right this second, actually. I gotta go back and let's get rid of this. Put this back to 4, and let's delete this and recompile. So we have our stat amount that's getting generated on the fly, and the loop is going to go, okay, well, I'm going to keep going until I hit max amount. So, and max amount is between 2 and 4. So just remember, this is your first index, this is your last index, and the last index is going to be a random number between 2 and 4. When it completes, it just goes through to a return node, so you can go ahead and connect that. And in order to get that, you just go return node, add a return node, and it'll just do that. So now from here, you're going to want to string out, put your temp variable in here, and you want to connect that for loop to your temp integer. Now the temp integer is going to be, I'll comment this too. Temp integer, this whole section right here. I'm just going to move this return node down so it's not in the way. Temp integer, this will tell you which stat you're getting that time, right? So remember our final stat array and our item stat array? We have our item stats right here. Well, we've got increased movement speed, and we've got increased attack speed, and increased critical strike, and increased whatever it is. We have it all, right? So we want that to roll at random, right? We don't want to just give them movement speed every time. We want it to go between 0 and 4, and we want to know that we're going to get some random number in there every time this thing loops. Every time the loop runs, we're going to pick another one of these at random. So temp integer is getting a value of a random integer between 0 and however many you have in here. So if you have 20 items in here, this number needs to be 20. Okay? And you need to have all those filled out, otherwise it's going to grab them. If they're empty, it's going to grab them and it's going to display nothing. And you're going to go, well, why isn't this working? It's fucking broken. It's not getting any text. But really it is. It's just that you didn't fill it out, right? So make sure you're only using, however, this max number matches the bottom of your item stat array. Easy enough. Okay? So we're going to say, comment this and say that this is the pick random stat or get random stat. Get random stat. Right, and then after you've assigned it that value to the temp integer, because you don't want to do this. You don't want to. Well, yeah, you don't want to take this right here and just drag it out and then drag it out again, because you're going to get 2 different random numbers. This is why I use this temp integer. If you put random integer and you put that in here, it's going to get a random integer here. It's going to add that to here, and then on the switch on int, it's going to get another random integer. You see? So we don't want 2 different random integers. We want to make sure that that stays the same. And so you want to say, okay, we're getting the random integer. We're storing it as a temp integer for this specific loop, this one run through. Then we're going to take that integer and we're going to check and we're going to get the item from the item stat array at the index chosen by this random number that one time through. So if it was 4, we're going to get stat 4 out of here, increased fire damage, and then we're going to add it to this final stat array, because there's none in here. There's nothing in here, right? So it adds 1. It creates the first element of that array, and then it comes over here, and we're going to add a switch to that, and we're going to check the integer again and go, what integer was that? Was that 1 or 2 or 3 or 4? Okay, well, if we know that number 4 was increased fire damage, all right, and number 0 is increased movement speed, and all these other ones, we know what they are. So if we got increased fire damage, then we obviously want to know that we want to use the 4th slot on the switch, which goes to, just happens to be our fire damage, right? And I'm going to go through that in a minute. So the next things you'll do here is pull off your temp integer, and you're going to get your item stat array, and you're going to get from that, right? And you're going to plug in your temp integer to there so that it's the right one, and you're going to take this and you're going to do an add fucking array, not the other one. Make sure that you do this right. So add, it has to be from array right there. Add from array, and then you're going to take the final stat text array, control click, drag it over here, grab that. So you're adding this item slot 4 to this array right here. You're adding it to this array, and then you're continuing on, right? That's what this does right here. So I'm going to take this, delete it, comment this stuff here. I'll comment all this. Add chosen stat from array 1, or I'll just put from stat array, item stat array to final stat array. Final stat text array, or whatever the fuck it's called. It doesn't really matter, but okay, so that's fine. Black that out. I don't care. So it's taking the chosen stat from the item stat array and adding it to the final stat array, making this array, which is going to be the one that we display, right? These are the items we're displaying. These are the items we can choose from when it creates an item and needs to fill its slots with stats. So again, let's take this out. Actually, if you haven't done the switch yet, because you've seen it here already for five minutes, switch on int, grab the switch on int, hook it up right there, and just drag your pin out here, and then you're going to add pins to it in the amount you need. It doesn't matter if you want to just try it with 1 first, that's fine. So, I have 4 because I have, or 5 I mean, because I want, because I just had like movement speed, attack speed, critical strike, damage, critical strike chance, and fire damage. I had 5 total, right? So 0 to 4. That's what I have in here. 0 to 4. And so it's got to match those kind of, those are going to be however many you have in here. If you have like 15 different things, then you're going to end up needing 15 different pins, and you're going to have one of these for each pin, and it's going to do what it needs to do. And so just try one if you want to start. They're all the same pretty much. The only reason why they're different is because, and they're not just all coming off the same thing, is because I want random float values that are all different, right? I want movement speed to be able to go between like 0.05, like 0.5%, and 2%. So movement speed is going to go from 0.05 to 0.2, or sorry, not 0.05 to 0.2. So 5%, this is 5%, because it's going to be appended to a percentage. And then, so, yeah. So you go 0.5 and 0.2, and then um, on like attack speed, I want it to be between 2% and 10%, right? So just remember, if you know your percentages and your and stuff really well, you'll be fine here. But 5%, 20%, 10% is 0.1, 0.5 is 50%, 0.5 is 50%, 0.5 is 50%. That's 10%, 10%. These ones I just copied in because I was trying to hurry, but this is like these are the only two that are different. So my attack speed can go from 2% to 10%. So you can get between 2% and 10% increased attack speed, but you can get 5% to 20% movement speed increase. It'd be cool to get 20% increased movement speed, right? Critical strike damage can go from 10% to 50% because you want, obviously you want to be able to have a lot of critical strike damage, like in Diablo or something. Those are like the numbers. I just kind of randomly threw in numbers there. And all you're doing is taking that random value, you're pulling out your final stat text array, and you're hitting add, again, to array, the top here, and you're going to take that random value, and you're going to plug that in to there, and you're going to run your connection from each one to the add. And those these, like I said, these right here, every single one of these individual ones has to coincide with the location they are in this array. 0 has to, like, movement speed has to be 0 because movement speed is 0 right here. My increased attack speed has to be 1 because it's 1 in my array right here. If it rolls a 1 right here, and I get the number 1 stat in here, which is increased attack speed, I need to switch to know that I rolled a 1 so that I can give it increased attack speed. And it's not saying, oh, fuck, I'm giving you movement speed instead of what you actually rolled, which was critical strike damage or something, right? So those need to all coincide with that. And you just build them how you want. You keep doing them. You keep duplicating this. You can just literally take this and then just come down here, Control W, make another one, name it what you want, put the percentages in, and then just add the next one here. Boom. Now you got stat 5 or 6 or whatever that is going to be. You can name it something else, and you just have to make sure that you have an item in here, and you'd add one, and you'd name it whatever you want that to be called. You name it right here, and that way you can keep track of it when you come in here and look at stuff. Now that we've generated, this is basically everything. As soon as the loop finishes, right, it comes through. It goes, oh, loop 1 picks movement speed. Loop 2 picks something else, critical strike damage. Loop 3, it picks critical strike chance. Loop 4, it picks fire damage. Now I want you to know, right now, it's going to go loop between these numbers, or this many times, and pick an integer at random, right? Well, there's no way for it right now for it to not pick the same thing again. So if you get movement speed, it still could roll movements. It can still roll a 0 again, right? Because I haven't put the functionality in here to not roll it once you've gotten it. That is something that needs to be added to this, and if I ever do that, I will definitely update, like with a video that's kind of showing how to update that in here. It's mostly just this section right here that needs to be like a check. That just checks to see if you already rolled one of these numbers or something, because you essentially, you don't want to roll movement speed 5 times. That would be stupid, right? But for now, you guys kind of hopefully get the gist of this, and you can kind of understand that this is how this is working. If you want to try to set that up on your own, you be my guest. And it's not too complicated probably to just put in some checks that'll allow, like put in a variable here that sets something. I'm not sure exactly, but there'd be a way to set something so that you can check against it right here, so that, oh, if 0 has already been rolled, then then the minimum number is no longer 0, or that number is no longer from there or something. So it's got to be, there could even be a check to just, after this roll, you could check to see what number that is, and if it's in the list of like you could add numbers to an array. So every number that rolls right here, you could add this to an array of integers, and all you have to do is say like, so you add this number to the array. It has the first roll, maybe you get a 1. It adds it to an array, and that 1 is now in the array. So then next time it comes through loops, it rolls a random number. Instead of setting this first, it checks to see if this random number is one of the numbers in the array. If it's equal to one of the numbers in the array, then the loop breaks and it comes back and it does it and it tries looping again. And it keeps doing that until it gets numbers that it hasn't put in that array. And then that would probably solve the problem. And I just came up with that off the top of my head. But then you would want to change this to a break, so that it'll it'll basically like it won't continue to loop. It won't continue to actually. It may not even you don't want it to break. You don't want it to break. Sorry, no, you don't break. You just put in an if statement or something, and then if that happens false, it's just going to come back and loop again, and then loop, 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 loop every time until actually it might not completely solve it because this is only looping a certain amount of times. So you'd have to set that up to keep going. So it's a little bit more complicated than what I just said, but that's kind of like how it would have to work. It's something in that sense. So I gotta move on to the next part. We're gonna go out of this, and this is all the generating random. We're gonna go back to the event graph. Now we are past this. We've gotten all this done, and we're on to the part where we actually create the actor tooltip now. And this is the actor tooltip that we made earlier, right? So it has all these variables that we put in there, remember, and we expose them on spawn, so they're all right here, so that when we spawn the actor tooltip, we can set them all. And so we're going to make a couple more macros. These are going to be, I'm going to go through these kind of quick because we already set up a macro, and you guys should know how to do it now. But first thing you need to do is create a widget, set it to your actor tooltip name, whatever actor tooltip name you had. These should all be here, the ones that you had exposed. If they're not, you need to make sure that you go back and expose those and make them public. And these macros are essentially the variables from the item structure. So the way that I made these is I'm going to go to the first one, item stat 1. You pull your item structure out, you break that struct, and you get the items you want that you want to fill. And in my case, on the first one here, I did item image, title text, item rarity, item type, primary stat type, and none of the others, right? I just did those. You can minimize and maximize this. This is how you're going to see it when you break it, I think, at first, or something like that. It might just be like this. But you pull these down, and you're not using any of the other ones yet, right? And that's because I want to separate them because they're all in a certain spot, and I don't want them all crisscrossing and stuff. So I just want certain ones from this macro, and I'm going to make those outputs in here. So you need to add those outputs, your slate brush, your text, or strings, whichever one you're using, and save that macro. And then, I have to compile now. Now, let's go back out to our event graph, and you're going to pull that first macro that you just made, stat item set 1. I call it item stat set 1, and you'll pull that out, and you'll set that there, and you'll just start plugging those in there, right? Okay. Now that one's done. We're going to have stat texts, which is for the stats here, the main stat 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we make another macro, and you're going to go inside of it, and you're going to add the final stat text array right there, and you're going to get from it 5 times. And each one of these needs to be 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. You could also probably do this with like a... actually, no, you can't. So, yeah, you just got to get this and get, add 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then just drag these into these new outputs that you have to make. So make sure you make all those. New parameters, stat 1, text, stat 2, all those, and then just plug these all in. and that macro is done. And then we're going to go back out again, and you will see stat texts on your thing because you name it that, and you can drag that out, and you can pin those all in there right there. Again, see, I haven't made my macro for my integers yet, and you know, if you guys need, you're going to need to end up doing that. I haven't done it yet, but like you'll want to do that. I didn't do primary stat type yet either. I didn't plug that in, but I needed to. I don't know why I didn't. Not sure why. I'm not sure why I disconnected that. So that needs to go there. I might end up just putting this one with the integer one so that I don't have to have like them crisscrossing, because now this will crisscross with whatever I do, and I like them to be all nice and straight. So that's why I make macros, or at least all in a line and not like crisscrossing. I don't like that. So then you make your next one, and this one is almost the same as the first one. This macro is literally the same type thing. You pull the item structure out, you break it, but this time you just get the other items that you need that you haven't filled in yet, like the affix, the lore, my text color, my brush color. Set the outputs up. You're going to have to go in here and add those again. Affix, lore, text color, brush color, and make your... these are all things from the item structure. If you can't remember what it is, you just look here or go into the actual item structure that you have on your thing here. It's going to be all in there. Then we go back down. I just call them like item stat set 2 because that's like set 2 and this is set 1 right here. And then the last one is my stat values. Those are all the float values that I made, and I do the same exact thing, right? I stored all those float values in this array that I have, and so those are ready to be taken out and distributed to the menu. So I get 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4 slot, and I make my outputs again, floats, 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 floats. I name them all because I like to be precise. I like things to stay organized. And so stat 1 goes obviously into stat value 1, and just connect all those. You should be at that part now. That part should be done. And that was kind of fast. I know I went through that kind of quick, but really it's the simplest stuff. It's the same thing. You're just doing the same thing over and over again, setting up a macro, grabbing the items you need in here from over here and just putting them out here, whatever it is that you need, getting just those specific things. Make sure you have outputs to plug them into, and pull them all across, and that'll be done. And then, so now, at event begin play, when the actor spawns, it generates all its random stats. It says, hey, now I have random stats. I can give those random stats to the actor tooltip. So I'm going to create the actor tooltip. I'm going to assign all those random stats into the actor tooltip's exposed variables. I'm also going to say I want to give a copy of myself and plug that into the item master BP reference. Now my actor tooltip knows what I am and who I am because it has a copy of me, which is the item that we're actually in right now, the blueprint master, or it'll be the copy of whatever item it is. Like if it's spawning, it's not going to be the master. It'll be like the sword or whatever it is that you have, and that'll go there. And then we're going to take that widget. We're going to do the simple stuff like add to viewport. You're going to connect the add to viewport to this as well, and then you're also going to run this string out from the widget here, and you're going to pull it out and do set position in viewport. Okay, and another one of these things where you have to set the position with a tick, and that's kind of unfortunate right now. I'm trying to figure out a better way to do that, but you want to just make sure that this create widget is set to set position in viewport with that to the target, and then you're going to go in here and set the event tick to plug in there also. So the first time it kind of goes through, it says, hey, event begin play, do all my stuff. I just created random stats and I just plugged them all in, and now my actor tooltip knows what they are, and then it can pass on the information to the item tooltip, and boom, so on and so forth. And it adds myself, I want to add myself to the viewport, and now I'm going to set my position, and then I'm going to let the tick handle my position after that. And so in order to do that, you got to take get player controller, and you're going to say get actor location, because you want the actor location. The actor's location is the item that's just spawned, right? The sword that just fell on the ground. That's this location. And you can take that, and you're going to go project world location to widget position. That's what you want right there. So project world location to widget position. And you're going to say, well, what widget do I want to, or where, sorry, not what widget. You want to say which, take the screen position and plug it into the actual position of that. And you'll have that set up. Alright. So my construction script is literally empty on here, so you don't have to worry about that. You've got all the values of all the variables here. You guys, I know I went through these macros kind of fast, but it's just those 4 macros, and again, they're just like right here, and all they're doing is just passing along that information, saying these are my values that were set in here. Well, sorry. That value and those values were set in here. This one and this one come from that structure that you typed in all the information to. You filled it out, right? You typed in what rarity it is. You typed in the type of the item. It's a chest item. It's a a legendary chest, and it is the lore says it's awesome, right? So you typed all that stuff out. These stats literally came from in here just seconds before they are trying to be used by the macro. And that is the pickup item. That's it. That's all it is. So now that the pickup item is pretty much done, you guys just, I'm going to go back to the treasure chest again, and I'm going to go over this now. You can take this master blueprint now that it's completed, and you would say, okay, I'm going to go into my item database. Here's my master blueprint, and I'm going to make a child, and that's going to be, I'm going to call that child legendary master. Right? Legendary master. And that is the one that when it's made, you would say legendary master, and then you would go into it and you'd say right here, you go to item structure right here. It's always going to be at the top because it was inherited from the parent that I just made the child from. And look, we have other variables here. These things don't need to be messed with though, so don't fuck with any of them. I should probably, it's hard, it sucks because they're here. I'd rather have them not be there and have them be like private, but or protected or something so that the children can't get them. But right now, I'm just doing it like this. So this is the image. You go in and say, I want the image to be, this is the legendary master, right? So every legendary item is going to get this image because it's a legendary, right? Every legendary is going to have close this image. Every legendary item is going to be a legendary, right? So legendary. Every legendary item is going to have the color text of whatever I have, right? Which is, I'm currently using this color right here. So I'd go here and I'd say I want it to be that, my text color. And the brush color, actually, sorry, my image is not this. I don't think that is the image. That's not the image. That's the image of like the sword or something. I put that in there and I forgot. That's not the right one. This is the one that I set up to do for like my thing here. So that's how that would appear. Once it draws all that, it's going, okay, well, so from now on, every child that is made from this blueprint, from this legendary master, is going to automatically get legendary in there. It's going to automatically have the text color filled out, and it's going to automatically have this brush color filled out. So that way, it knows. I don't know why I used brush color and didn't call it item title image. I think I called it title image on certain things. So I'll go back and I'll check that in a minute. Um, so yeah, and essentially, and then as you go through, oh well, I want to make a bunch of legendary chest items. Well, you make a child of the legendary master, and then you set that to chest, and then all those, that's a master of the chest items from the legendary, and then they can be like, or you don't even have to do that. You can just take them from legendary, and then you can just make a chest. You can fill these in all the time. If you want to make every time you make a child, you can use more information as long as its children are going to be needing to inherit from it. Like all the chests that are legendary can inherit from a chest master. That's also a legendary. You know, so that way they all get the chest name inherited, and you don't have to fill it out on every single one. Um, it ends up being to where the only thing you actually fill out is like you fill out the title. What do I want the damn thing to be called? And you fill out this, the affix and the lore. You fill out like 3 things, and every single thing else, except for like maybe type, primary stat type. No, that's actually getting automatically changed. Um, I haven't set that one up though, but that still needs to be set up. Stamina value, armor value, those ones are automatically going to be set up. But stamina, what is it? What the hell? Oh yeah, that's right. We don't change those because on the actual tooltip thing, we don't. Those are static text. Like stamina and armor are static. They don't change. Like intellect, you might want intellect and strength to change or something like that, and that's what that primary stat value type is. That one can be changed on the fly. Um, and those can be adjusted. So inside your item master, I have primary stat type, and primary stat type is getting pulled from here, but in reality, um, primary stat type needs to be randomly generated. So you need to do in order to get primary stat type to work, you need to go back to your generate stats, and you need to set in another random setup. It's basically the same exact thing. It's pulling from another array of 3, like, or 4, whatever you have. Like if you have intellect, strength, agility, or dexterity, or whatever it is, and spirit, something, whatever you want. Those different types of primary power, and if there's only 3, like intellect and strength and dexterity, then just you would set up an array that's going to be just like this one, where it has the items already in it, and you're going to have to do the same type of thing where you fill another array just to get that information, to pass that information along. But you can also do that outside. It doesn't have to be done in here. It can be done like right after this. You can say like, oh, grab that primary stat value and add it to at random, right? And add it to an array. The thing is that you do have to do it like this. You have to do it just like this with a temp integer and an integer, and then grab it and add it to the array so that you can take that integer and add it to the array. Actually, you may not have to do it. You may not have to because it's going to grab it only one time. Get it, grab it, add it. So yeah, you can just grab that, do it like right here, and then just take that number and take that integer, or not even add it to an array. Just grab it from the other array that you already have and just pass it straight down. So you would say, oh, well, let's say this is let's say that this is the new array that I made for intellect and strength and stuff, and you would say get, and it gets it from that index of the random number. And so let's just say this rolled with a 4. Who knows? And it's going to get intellect or something, and then we would just take that and pass that into primary stat type. And 4 could be intellect. 4 could be strength. Who knows what the damn number is? You would set it up in your thing. And that goes with like this too. These numbers need to be set up. I just didn't do them yet, but it's like you guys have all of the ability to do it now because you can see how I did it here. It's the same setup like this. And so this is essentially just to get those 5 stats. So you could say you could you can modify this function to do more inside of itself, and or you can just make another little function that does like generate primary stat, generate primary maybe generate primary stats, and then generate random stats, right? So you'd have two different functions, but they'll just sit here and run one after the other, and then it'll fill all this information. And you would need another macro for these right here. You can just make another macro, add the stuff to it, add the outputs, fill all that in, and there you go. It's done. Once your items are all set up in your chests, and you added them to the treasure chest in that section inside these arrays, once you make them all in your item database, you make all of your folders and all your stuff, and you come in here and you've set all these, then you should be able to essentially start putting those chests out in the world, and you should be able to place a couple of those chests and spawn and hit play, and you should be able to walk over to them, and you should be able to click on them, and they should spawn items, and they should actually have a tooltip that draws up, and it'll actually like say information, and all that information will be based on the item, the real item that it is. So if it doesn't have any name, if you never went in and filled in the name, because you just made a bunch of copies, you said, oh yeah, this is going to be my sword, and this is going to be my chest, and this is going to be this, and this is going to be this. If you don't go back in there and change the names and add the names, it's just going to be blank information, because it's coming from the master that, remember, we never filled out. So you got to be sure that you go into every item and you fill it out. And it'll actually come up with the information on there. So just don't forget that part. And that pretty much concludes the entire loot generation tutorial. You guys have all of it now. You are caught up with where I'm at. And the only other thing that I wanted to or even go over right now in this video is there's only one other way to do this that I know of that can make it a little faster, and that is to use a database. And it really only helps you with like updating the items, because you are going to have to go into the item database and the epic or whatever it is, and go in here and be like, okay, whoops, I want to change the name of this to glorified robe. I want to name it something else, and you want to do that with every item, right? Well, if you don't want to do that way, you can use an item database, or a database which is like one of these here, and you right click on the thing here. This is an older one actually. Let me open my new one. So you will right click and you'll go, where is it? Blueprint. No, it's called miscellaneous, and then you want to go up to data table, and this is like a spreadsheet. It's basically like a spreadsheet for Windows. So your data table is it's a spreadsheet file. It's like you can open a spreadsheet file and update the data table. Basically, you can import the spreadsheet and it'll update this data table. So your spreadsheet might have all these blocks and have all these things at the top, and it'll recognize them. Like I set up a spreadsheet that looks like this. It has all these things at the top, and so when you import it, the data table recognizes that, and then it goes, oh, okay, here's all these, and item image, and actor, and all the shit's in here, right? And it has names, and I went into the spreadsheet in Windows or Microsoft Spreadsheet or whatever, and I set these all up. It was actually probably done in, I think I did it in Google Sheets. So I can sit there in Google Sheets and I can update all my items and update the text that they have, update their affix text and their lore text. All that information can be updated right there on the spreadsheet. And then later on, when I'm back at my computer, I can reload this with like a new spreadsheet basically by I think it's re-import right here. So you re-import the version of the spreadsheet, and then boom, it updates it. And now all the items have been updated, all the information is current, and then you can grab from this information instead of the item structure information. So basically, you would be substituting the item structure for a data table, and you'd be pulling from the data table instead of that. And where that would come in is like, let me see, where that comes into play is, go back, where it comes into play is on the item master, right here. On the item master, we were pulling from these macros, right? And these macros were pulling from the item struct. And we could have said, well, I want there to be, I want to pull from the data table, right? So you get data table, let's see. Is it, no, maybe we have to add the data table in here. Might be like this. Actually, I just want to check this. So we would go, okay, I want a data table reference, and then that data table reference is going to be compiled to Blueprint, and it's going to be a specific reference, right? Because we've only got like one data table or whatever in there. You guys would probably only have one data table, and that data table is going to be the one that you put in there. I want it to be list version 2. I have 2 of them because I don't know. I forget why I had 2. I changed the name, I think. So you compile that, and now you have the data table in there, and you can go and pull that data table, and you can say I want the data table, and you can say get. No, we don't want to get rows and names. We want to get. I think there's. What's the data table though? Why the fuck? I totally can't remember how I did this last time. So get. It's just. I'm just gonna right click on this and go data table, and then remember break data table category handle. Oh, you can break. That's what you do. You grab the data table and you go break. Nope, can't do it. Guess I thought you could. God, I fucking did this before. Data table. Set members in data table category handle. Break data table row. Break data table category handle. Okay, get data table row. That's what you need. Get data table row. So like essentially, instead of doing all that from our item struct, we would have done the macros from the get data table shit or something. And it's kind of like whatever. You could do all this, right, and be like, oh, that's cool. I got all my generated stats. And then you would just go like here, and then you'd say I want the data table. So you actually don't need this variable. Fuck that. And you say I want that one, and then I think you gotta break this. I feel like you gotta break this. I think it's get data table row. I could have swore it was just get data table. Let me see what this fucking get break item structure, and then here's all the item stats, right? So this is going to be all of the item stats from the data table that we used. And the problem with this is basically the fact that this is not like this won't be random, right? Because you've got this thing here, and so we want the item to spawn random, and it can't just like it's harder to use the data table because you have to set this up differently. So I wouldn't do this because it needs to know like that this is a specific item that's fallen, and it's not like you can't just go, hey, it's a sword, because the item that spawns could be something completely different. You know, you don't just fill this out. It's spawning itself, or it's being spawned by the treasure chest, and it could be a chest item, you know, or a leg item, and you have to somehow fill this out with some information and say, well, no, it's this specific item. But I don't bother. I like doing it the way I have it set up. Oh, that's good. This thing is still here, so that's cool. I like that. Anyway, oops, No. I wouldn't bother with the data table right now. If you guys are having trouble with this at all, I wouldn't even bother with the data table. Alright. So anyway, that's pretty much everything. You guys have it all. And I'm going to go ahead and conclude this video tutorial series. The next video I'm going to make is going to be about setting up a first-person shooter style menu system where you can hover on something and with your camera, like if you look straight at a specific object, it'll pop up a menu, and then if you hold a button, it'll do a like a bar, and that bar, when it finishes, it'll pick up the item, and then you can drop the item again, and stuff like that. So and it'll if you're not looking at the item, it'll take the UI menu out of the way and stuff. So it won't be too long to make. I just have to make the functionality first. I don't want to do it while I'm recording because it takes too much time. Anyway, thank you guys for watching, and I really hope you guys are able to follow along and get all this done, and that you guys have some luck with this, and are able to make some cool stuff. I will see you guys next time.